This video is brought to you by Green Man Gaming. Click the link below if you want to check out some amazing deals on some incredible games. Difficulty settings are a pretty integral part of a lot of games. You know, they allow the player to choose a mode that they're comfortable with, or allows someone to challenge themselves or play the game the way the developer intended it to be played. At least that's what you'd think. See, difficulty settings can be kind of a mess sometimes, especially if there's too many of them and the intended way for the developer wanting you to play the game is actually heroic difficulty, like Halo. It's like, why name one standard if the standard way to play the game is actually the hard difficulty? It doesn't really make much sense. But what I want to talk about in this video is the easiest difficulty for games, and why I think that playing on easy mode is okay actually. You know, there's not really an issue with playing on easy mode, there's nothing wrong with it. And this is coming from someone who used to be very much like if you play on easy mode, you're not playing the game properly, you're a fucking idiotic person. If you play on easy, you're just not experiencing the full game. But as I've gotten older, and I've become less of a elitist prick when it comes to games and realize, you know, people play games to enjoy them, I've come to terms with the fact that playing on easy mode is, you know, it's a good thing. I think more people should be comfortable playing games on easy mode, especially if the game is out of their comfort zone. So let me give you an example here, right? So I'm going to talk about the Evil Within, which, you know, take a shot. Someone on my Discord server, they already know who they are, said that they're going to start up the Evil Within soon and they're going to play on casual difficulty. And that's fine. The Evil Within is a tough game. It's a very difficult game. I'm a sadist. Even if I'm not enjoying a game on the harder difficulty, I will push through it and beat the game. But for a lot of people, that isn't enjoyable. I had another friend years ago who was playing the Evil Within on standard and they got stuck and they were like, oh, I had to lower the difficulty to casual to progress through the game. And that's a good thing because they actually progressed through the game rather than dropping it there and then because they were getting frustrated, and they still experienced the whole thing, you know? Yeah, they didn't struggle as much as someone on a harder difficulty like I did when I played on a Kumu, right, where you die in one hit. Fuck that difficulty, genuinely. But yeah, they didn't struggle as much as that, but they still had a good experience. They still really enjoyed the game, and that's because they lowered it to easy. And I've started doing this with some games, even if I didn't like the game all too much. For example, God of War Ragnarok, I wasn't struggling with the game, but I was getting so sick and tired of the fact that enemies are just damage sponges and I wanted the game to be over with. So during the Ragnarok fight at the end, I lowered it to easy just to beat the game. And that's okay. That's okay. It's the way that I wanted to play it. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. You need to be allowed and okay with the fact to play games the way that you want them to, because you paid for it. But obviously, a lot of people have an issue with this. And obviously, I had an issue with this as well. You know, I was very much like, you should play on normal or higher or you're not experiencing the game. But the moment when I started to realize that maybe that's the wrong way to play games was when I was watching a YouTuber I'm not gonna name, and they were talking about, I think, one of the Wolfenstein games, and they were very much saying like, oh, if you're not playing on the hardest difficulty, you're not playing the game properly. And I tried it on the hardest difficulty, and that shit was fucking miserable. I love Wolfenstein, right? I adore the Wolfenstein games. I've talked about them for hours on my channel, even though I don't really like Wolfenstein 2 and Youngblood, but forget that. I would have hated this series if I started the game on the hardest difficulty and just stubbornly pushed through it on that difficulty. Because sometimes these hard modes, they don't really have much thought put behind them. They just go, ah yeah, we just buff the enemies and they do a fuckload of damage. You die in like 2 hits and you do the same amount of damage, so it takes about 2 working days to kill someone. So it's not a fun experience, but you get an achievement for beating it on hard. It's just not fun though, is it? That's what I mean. Like, there shouldn't be this elitism around playing games on extremely hard difficulties. It sucks, and it makes people feel bad for playing it on easy, trying to enjoy the game that they enjoy, you know, trying to enjoy their hobby. Right, I work a job now, and sometimes when I get home from my 9 to 5, I don't want to play a ball-bustingly hard game. Sometimes I do, you know, From Software games are the exception, but I don't want to play something ball-bustingly hard, and normal difficulty is like the sweet spot for me. But sometimes if a game is too hard, like Resident Evil, I played it on very easy, And as much as I didn't really enjoy the game, I definitely would have hated it and dropped it playing on a higher difficulty. I did drop it multiple times playing on the higher difficulty because it just wasn't a fun experience for me. And there's also the accessibility section of it. I have a friend who used to love fighting games, right? He has hundreds of hours in Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter, even like Killer Instinct. He played them all. We hated playing fighting games against him because he was just insanely good. You couldn't even get one punch in on him. And if you did, that was a victory on your part because he was one of those players, you know, insanely good at the game. He would get a bunch of nasty comments on his profile because he would just humiliate people. And he had a tumor in his head and had surgery. And because of that surgery, he lost quite a bit of motor functions in his hands, and he can't play the fighting games anymore. At least, well, he can play them still, but he's not got the motor skills to be able to pull off all those combos as much as he used to anymore. But obviously he still loves playing games, and he has to play a lot of games on an easier difficulty now because he doesn't have the reflexes to get through those harder modes that people say you need to play these games on, which is unfair on him. Like, it's basically telling him that he's not allowed to enjoy these games because of his disability, which is shitty, you know. It's a bit of an exaggeration, you know. There's not a bunch of people, you know, saying that. There's a few and far between. The elitism's all over the internet, but I'm kind of just rambling a bit here. He still plays games. He's moved on to different genres, but the games that he was playing before, like story games, like say Devil May Cry, stuff like that, he plays on the easiest difficulty now, and he still enjoys them because that's a more manageable way for him to experience the game. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's just as justified in loving the experience as someone who has millions of hours in, say, Devil May Cry and can pull off shit like this because they've been studying all the combos and know a bunch of glitches to pull off insane moves. That is my point. Playing on easy mode or finding easier ways to play games is okay. And I'm really hoping this video gets to the right person who was maybe feeling a bit guilty for playing games on easy mode. Just embrace that shit, man. It means that you can enjoy the game, you know, you're having a good experience. And the more people who can experience and enjoy the game, the better. Let's be real here. I hope you all enjoyed this little discussion video. I like doing these, you know, just talking off the cuff like I'm in a Discord call with you guys or some shit. I do have a Discord server, by the way, if you want to join it, link below. And yeah, let me know any games that you switch to playing on easy mode if you feel comfortable doing so. Maybe people could talk about it in the comments. But yeah, you all know this point in the video. This is where I talk about Green Man Gaming. It's an incredible storefront. If you want to find some games to play on an easier difficulty, they're definitely going to be here. They do incredible sales all the time. It's my go-to place to buy games, even though they provide me with a lot of copies of big AAA games, which I'm so thankful for. But when I can, I shop at Green Man Gaming, and there'll be a link below if you want to check out some games for yourself. And with that, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. These guys are what make this channel possible. Just this silly channel where I just talk about random topics that I want to talk about or random games that I want to talk about. And it's the same with my YouTube supporters, you know, those guys. It's insane to me how many there are now, and it's always going to be wild to me that people are willingly paying monthly just to see these videos slightly earlier and just to hear me chat shit for like 8 to 10 minutes. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next video.